everybody, and welcome to the final presentation in UNBC Northwest's public presentation series for 2017 winter and spring. We've extended the season due to popular demand and to take advantage of a lot of the talent coming through town. So for today, we're pleased to welcome Elee Kraljii Gardiner, who is fresh from a reading at the Elephant's Ear Cafe downtown, which is a big success, I hear. And she's agreed to join us for an extended noon hour reading from her most recent creative endeavor, Serpentine Loop. Elee comes to us originally from Boston, apparently, although she did her undergraduate degree in McGill and has been living in Vancouver for the last 20 years, where she was very active, heading up a writing workshop opportunity for residents of Vancouver's East Side. So Elee, we leave the event and the audience to you.
Thank you for having me. Hi everyone, hello. My first book of poems is called Serpentine Loop, and it was put out by Anvil Press. And I'm very happy to let you know that it's gone into a second printing 9 months after it came out. And I'm happy to share some poems with you here today. So just a little bit of background. The term serpentine loop actually comes from figure skating. Figure skating has the artistic long program, short program, but it used to have a discipline called figures. And that was the figure eights that we are used to seeing traced. I grew up as a skater. My mother won a silver medal and a gold medal in figure skating, and she was also a busy surgeon. So if she wanted to skate, she had to take me and her my two older sisters with her to the rink. And she would plop us down on the ice and skate around us, and we would eventually toddle after her and then get involved in our own creativity. And that was really my first experience of watching somebody process art and creativity and movement and creation. And while I left skating when I was about 12 years old, the language of it stayed with me. The language of skating has a lot in common with the language of writing. We talk about paragraphs, we talk about brackets. These are words that are shared, even the word scribe. So a scribe is a long tool that you would put on the ice to, almost like a compass, to scratch a perfect circle that you would then trace in figures. So the serpentine loop, which is diagrammed in the book, is a figure that I actually never learned to skate. It looks like this. I never learned to skate it myself, but it was one that I found incredibly beautiful. I was always interested in what was left on the ice by the skaters, as well as what they performed in their body above the ice, but I was always interested in the etchings on the ice. So in Serpentine Loop, I'm using the language of skating and the language of edges to talk about how we include and exclude each other and how we carve out our place in the world. So I'll start in with a poem called Learning to Read and Write. And it's literally about moves my mother invented on the ice. So here we go. My mother lifts stars, fruit, and fish from the surface of the ice for me. Her skate blades draw the world near the boards. Her hands are still above the ruffle of her skating dress. She glides, reverses in sharp movements without lifting her foot, propelled by the pendulum of her free leg. See the stars she has danced there? Now she uses both blades to carve a pair of parentheses for a pineapple's plump body. She locks her boots in a V and hops, chopping the spiky plumes. The fish begins like the pineapple. She adds a tail, pinpoints an eye with her toe pick, then drops away, rounds the rink, and delights me with a spray of snow from her blades. Mittens to my hips, I mimic her. Skate to center ice and spin until lost. The contrail of my scratch marks how far I travel, my lack of skill. What should be a nest of revolutions meanders across the ice like a string of unclasped pearls, a failure, until I recognize the first 4 loops spell my name, and I have something to show. I live in Vancouver on the unceded territory of the Musqueam people, And along my walks, I'm constantly aware of the thousands of footprints and the years and the histories that are beneath my feet, and think about how it is we divide territory, how it is that we negotiate space and power and land. This poem, Territory, came up when I was thinking about those things, and also saw some coverage in the newspaper about a car bomb in Palestine. So, territory. First, our Christmas kitten disappears. Then a neighbor's long hair is swiped, cleaning her paws by the koi pond. I open the gate one morning and interrupt a deuce of coyote scouting the street. Scruff, gray, lanky, and humorless, the larger sears me with a glance, puts me in my place. Fear invades the riding. Petitions for a cull materialize, and I delete them, spin samizdat theories of my own on territory, how it belongs to the larger brute. Schooled not to play by the shrubs, the children spend recess indoors, memorizing silhouettes, one of dog, one coyote. What, I wonder, are the coyote pups being taught? At home, my daughter tells me I did it wrong that morning. Make yourself big, you have to stare it down, she says, through gulps of juice. We are too big already, I say. I flip the paper to hide the photos of a car bombing. Then early before light rebuilds the known world, I slip to the window to witness one sitting sentinel at the curb as its partner in the bushes rouses a meal, herds it to the jaw. Word has it down on Musqueam Reserve, animal control shot one, tracked it, bloody, along the golf course to a den littered with 167 pet collars. I know this, I tell my neighbors. I saw the body loaded in a van that day. I walked the banks. It was taken to an office where procedure calls for carcasses to be weighed, measured. I heard the uniformed hunters praise the corpse, largest in memory, as I scraped mud from soles, and the Fraser River continued its constant intrusion into the bay. In thinking about how we treat each other, it was very much in my mind what is happening in the US, where I'm from, with aggression and war, and what is happening to the people who are waiting for those soldiers to come home. So this poem takes the word spiral. A Charlotte spiral is a move in skating that is performed with one leg up in the air and your head down by your weight-bearing leg. So I use that vocabulary word to leap off and talk about the destruction, the mental health issues in people coming back from war. Charlotte, I can piece it together. Your man, deployed and returned, perforated by the names of privates, and some one-syllable Southerner, whose body swirled like confetti, leaving nothing to send home. He's split into before and after, unable to follow through on anything but a punch. Maybe you connect. Maybe you dodge his questions by degrees. It's not my job to watch for the gun by the bed, the Colt in the car, the pipe in his hand replacing your name. So what if the TV is on when he's home, always on? I'm interested in how I make your pulse race, not the dates of his tour, that he's living in a country of downers, pot, and pain. My gig is to make you forget the desert, abandon the weight. You want to extinguish the wedding votive, lose the loop of violence? I can loosen the yoke. I am a nowhere man, built for takeoff, nothing to leave. He's the soldier, but I know exit wounds depend upon level of contact. Whether you pack it in or he re-ups, don't turn to me then. Configure whatever borders will hold you together. I'll be gone, traceless. My grandfather was a surgeon, and he had a very beautiful way of connecting with people in the community, and was frequently treating people who couldn't afford otherwise to get to the hospital or see anybody. So this poem, Doppelganger, was the first poem to be published in Harvard Medicine Journal in 40 years. And it's what's called an ekphrastic poem that's written off a photo or piece of art. So I found this photograph of my grandfather in medical school posing next to the cadaver that he and his classmates were using for learning about anatomy. So this is called Doppelganger. My grandfather smokes in the hospital. They all do. None realizing ash and nicotine violate the Hippocratic oath. Miss Fredericks, his nurse, presses his palm with instruments crafted in Europe. The heft of that icy metal slices through subcutaneous layers like a hymn. In the medical school photo, he stands beside a man, butterflied and propped as if struggling to rise, skin peeled from muscle and tendon, the cranium sawed and hinged upwards at an angle such that the dead man looks to be doffing his cap, a flirt, a cad. My grandfather beams a hero's smile, formaldehyde dripping from his elbows. Lunchtime, the repetitive prayer of hands to mouth. The smell sticks no matter how much I scrub. Others name the dead man Oscar, so he will have a name. Calluses on the palms and the ripple of muscle under skin suggest that he, dead at 43, was a hard worker. At other tables, students struggle with idiopathic structures and deviations. By the end of semester, the trio identifies cherry red spots in Oscar's gray matter and determines he died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Every organ but this one, lush, robust, and sound. At night, my grandfather stacks medical journals to the left of his bed. By morning, the pile stands on his right. I press him to tell me why he doesn't sleep while the world is still. He says he thinks of Oscar then, of all the Oscars, and the difference one man might make. A few years ago, there were several women around me who were diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was moved to write this poem when beautiful poet Melanie Siebert came to Thursday's Writing Collective, and she brought a phrase for us to use as a writing prompt. That phrase was spring-loaded with pollen. So I wrote this poem, Obad, which is generally a poem praising the coming morning, or something written in appreciation of one's love. So I wrote this poem, Obad, about springtime and recovery. And in it, I use the names of several different flowers, the Lisianthus nigrescens, which I've got ecologists in the room, so pardon me, you'll know more than I do, but this is a flower that's purely black. There's other flowers that I mention in here too. Obad. My color rises and the garden exhales, petit mort. Tonight, the bloodroot petals shock, drop. Purple wine cup tightens against chill malignancy, closing shut, shut. Inside the calyx of the breast, blight takes hold. Atypical cell division. I put the garden to sleep, prune back fear, slice stem from stalk, repeat until a skeleton emerges. Protocol is 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Waiting in the outpatient lounge, I question how much of me is frost hardy. I am trained to a stake, slow drip of pesticide. The nurse wears gloves. I become the rose bloom of blood in needle, become plum color swelling at joints. Preyed upon by butterfly clamps, I flutter, brush at mustard stamen stains under my eyes. Bruised by scent of naugahyde and disinfectant, I am isolated, one stalk in sterile vase, wrapped in plastic. First frost. Bird call absent. Thrush veins the late hours. This night has lasted months. The inside of my forearm is written with winter ivory. Doctors lattice me to a painful agenda of guesswork. Opportunistic parasites take hold. Statistics plant me at the gravesite. Elisianthus nigrescens. Dormant, I sip color, borrow belief from the stormy weather, her smoky purple bloom and deep green foliage, chosen for disease resistance. I'm canny, I quiet crocus, I seek root systems, cleave to the rhythm and cycle of the ice machine. Lean towards windows where I sense a quiver in hue, a slight thrum from the east. Aurora bleeding heart, Silene stenophila. Revival smells of darkness, not loam, but something scarcer. I fever through the swaling while they monitor the brush fire. They count the snap of cones and seeds, interpret any augury with percentages. They maintain they expect the body to germinate. Streams of killer language flow over, not into me. I husk, accept a sip, a cup, a glass, this leader drained until one softened spot breaches with green. Now half-formed and raw, dedicated to the practice of revival, here I am, spring-loaded with pollen. It's a funny thing when you're writing a poem, sometimes you have a place in your head that you don't include or articulate in the poem, but this one I always think about this particular field in Maine, in rural Maine, where I learned what it is to touch an electric fence. So, many of you will know the trick for avoiding this. This poem's called Boundary for the Married. Approach an electric fence with caution. A blade of sweetgrass extended between thumb and forefinger. Lay the tip of green upon the wire. It dances when the line is hot. Forget about touching metal with bare hands, closing the circuit with your body. Register the thrum of this green blade as pleasurable warning. Every so often, a heartbeat will gallop loose and threaten the collusion of crickets, the patience of funnel spiders. Commotion, while electrifying, is short-lived, and for better or worse, we do not forget. The bite of the wire on an open palm will remind you your job is to stay clear, to respect the divide. How long you carry the imprint depends on the intensity of the charge and your impulse to stay. In figure skating, it's important to keep your blades sharp. And my mother knew how to sharpen her own blades. It's sort of a thing that not many skaters know how to do, but she used to sharpen her blades and mine and my sister's about once a month. So I wrote about this procedure and what it meant. Once a month. She focuses on my skates. Gray as cygnets, Mine lack elegance, but equip me for my habitat. I know where the Zamboni lives, when to get a toe loop in on a crowded session, how to kick ruts in the third bleacher without getting caught. Not yet confined by gender, I cross as often as I like between the powdery heat of the women's and the bitterness of the urinals and the men's. Her skates wait by the sink, tan, buffed, punched out over the ankle bone, the tongue chewed by the habit of laces, foam pads stuffed down each throat. She brings a tin from the bottom drawer, peels off its plastic, baggy skin, tips it to wet a stone with oil until it darkens like a whale's eye. She slides the stone along the flat of the blade in circles like the loops she will trace tomorrow morning at early bird. On the ice, she is another woman. She seems to skate away from me more often than she approaches. It does not occur to me that at the rink, I may be a different girl. To sharpen the blade, she holds one boot upside down on her fist. So do I, little shadow. The cry of the stone is raw, the rasp of a rough-throated heron. I mimic how she checks for nicks with the pass of a thumb pad. A white line opens and floods red. Cold water stuns the cut, and she is quick to bandage me. Iron, blood, steel, stone, the blade shines when she holds it level to her eye. She repeats this procedure monthly. Though I am a careful observer, I am no closer to performing it myself. She wipes the blades of excess oil, snuggles each gleam of steel into terry cloth covers, and nests them in the skate bag we share. Each step is as familiar to me as her stroke, from one end of the rink to the other, 3 crossovers to round the corner, the susurration of her blades, a pulse. Her movements speak another language, one I will command eventually. My edges skim the surface, blades silent, no matter how hard I skate. I have seen girls develop, make an invisible act audible. Ahead of me is the possibility of jumping from girl to woman, water to ice. There's a poem by W.S. Merwin that I read and sort of moved into that poem and rearranged the furniture and took out some of Merwin's words and put in some of mine and came up with this poem called Cooling. Below us in the hayloft, the tractor engine ticks. I would rather be kissing again instead of cooling too. He talks, telling me stories about who he was before, who the people were, and what the place was, where that led. His words, lazy afternoon mud swallows. He doesn't ask me anything. Motes drift in the slant, the window corners furred with webs. Sure, he has stories. He's a whole generation older. He was impatient pulling down my jeans. They're stuck over my boots. Straw bites my back, and I pray the keys weren't in his pocket because things disappear in loose bales. His voice rises like a forkful of hay. I don't blame him for being excited by the feel of his own tongue. He is better than grass, but not horses. Maybe goats. I want him to fall in love with me. No, I want to fall in love one day with my own mouth the way he has fallen for his. My neighbors have, or used to have, a beehive, and I would stand at the kitchen sink and I would watch these bees on their highway from the hive to the blackberry bushes down by the river. And at this time, my children were quite small and were very chatty. And so I in talking with my neighbor, learned that when the hive needs a new queen, sometimes what they do is they cuddle around her and overheat her, basically kill her, and then can choose a new queen. So I sort of collided those ideas with this circumstance. That process of replacing the queen with a new one is called supersedure. Supersedure. Swarm hangs from the lilac, drips onto the lawn, a living pool. Drones do not question. Workers attend her. Drones fumble to mate, thwart her efforts to navigate. A colony lifts up in me, an affinity for the queen rises. Restless, incensed, who thrives, whose humdrum insistence? Someone always follows, chattering endearments. Who can remember to revel, slow, soften like wax? Am separating colors from whites, child from child, fat from bone, and blocks away in the blackberry bushes, nectar drunk and rolling in an exorbitance of pollen. The youngest child learns to use my first name if he wants to turn my head. In the eaves, a muscle of wax and honey, 90-pound nest, swollen, chugging with bodies, luscious vibration removal, ladder, suit, smoke out, hungover workers, entourage, thousands of gluttonous, stunned bodyguards, to obey the short-lived directive, save the queen. Where's the queen? Throng congregates midair and streams into tiny opening of new home, as if they never meant to leave. Vacation, an idol, some folly. Docile clusters inside. Where's the queen? We chisel off chunks, fat as pumpkins. Candle scent on concrete lasts until next rain. Air-traveling bodies, hive to river, river to hive, hive to river, river to hive. Queen is failing to fatten up on the sweetness of home. A cuddle death looms. Colony purrs, searching for queen's scent. Who is the queen? Drone's schedule of pickups, such lulling sedation spiked by private terror. Supersedure begins with the gesture of enfolding. Hive cloisters, heating, smothering. The urge to replicate, rebuild is profoundly cell-based. Private decisions yield symmetrical decision. Hive structure cools, then ignites the message of nectar in the matrix. Protect the dweller, protect the dweller. So I think I'll finish off with this, I could call it a prose poem, or I could call it a short story. I'll leave that up to you. It's called Pivot, and I just want to mention again, thank you so much for having me, Phil, and for being here on your lunchtime, and anybody watching, hello. It's great to be here in Terrace. Okay, Pivot. At Center Ice, the public school kids are more down than up. Along the boards, a parade. Kool-Aid stains, tight jeans, hair beads, lip fuzz, bodies shooting off in elastic dimensions. Breast buds, biceps, thunder thighs, none of them destined for success here. I won't get much done due to choppy ice and the crowd. Can work on spins, leave the kids their repetitive laps. I'm older not just because I'm almost out of high school, but because I know what I'm doing. Lacing up, I smile into my shins at the big talk. There's always one, some kid who owns it all. Anthony, in faded Celtics tank top, hanging past his knees, holds court with the girls, watches me sideways. Rough, towny voice, more charm than he knows what to do with. He can't bear it. He turns to me. You a real figure skater? You gonna teach me some tricks? Bench to ice, I learn he's 14. lives with his grandmother when he sees her. Listening is all it takes to make him mine. The girls all want him to play chase, but he's busy proving his bona fides. First time on skates, he can go backwards, doesn't need the barrier watch. No one at home told him to bring a sweatshirt or what to expect. He's just murdered by the cold. 110 pounds of shivering self-promotion. We head around once, twice. He imitates my waltz jumps. His cousin laughs, calls him pussy when he falls. Anthony's polite. Got the deference Southie boys have for elders. Won't answer back in front of me, but he'll pound Carlos. Gonna wail on him outside if he doesn't fucking quit it, pardon me. This kid's thin as licorice, with southern Italy in his skin. Palms stung pink from slapping the ice and too proud to admit how much it hurts. Tucks his hands in the cave of his armpits. Is fearless the way he throws his body behind his ideas. Will show neither embarrassment nor need. Both mean defeat. Come on, I tell him, take the mittens. No complications, no thanks, or I'll give them back. Anthony's ballsy, that's for sure. Knows the play of fear and pride too well for a kid his age, but maybe it's just me, so soft everything looks hard. His body language teaches me a few things about what he's learned of this world. He stretches his neck to keep my attention, herds me to the boards with the assertion of a guy 3 times his age, a future of moves working for him, the curl of his lip, young Caesar leading from the chin. The thing is, he's telegraphing hope, so I let him. His ankles sag like trolley wires, but he's betting I'll notice something, take him to a grander place. He promises to be here next week, and there is nothing more I believe than that he is going to be broken. By love, if he's lucky, frustration, if he's not. The edge of him honed until lethal, the blade turned against him, filleting soul from bone. I want to find him warmly dressed next week, but the school group doesn't come back. I take the ice, warming up 3 turns, switch from outside to inside edge along the blue line, meander into swizzles and pivots, look at the score of the surface. The toe pick in the circle reminds me that self-sufficiency is a means, not an end. It's likely I'm the only one who will remember the boy's moves. I stamp against the cold, impatient as a racehorse while the Zamboni erases. The lost and found box holds a sad compost of Bruins jerseys, hats, bald socks, my old mittens turned in on themselves. He could have kept them. And that's it. Thank you all. Thanks for your attention and your listening.